because the one over there takes you to the outside.
We're gonna try this.
You're losing ground. Move it.
There's guys there, dude. You're chalk.
Yep, we're gonna try it.
Enemies dropping into the AO.
Holy shit, dude. Yeah, we got it. Get him, chick. I'm dropping Lodi. Pussies.
You're all that's left. Get it done.
Hello and welcome to the Skill Gap, the only live Call of Duty video podcast where you are the star of the show. I'm your host, J-Rock, and in this episode, we're gonna end the eternal battle between controller players and mouse and keyboard players in Call of Duty. But how in the world are we gonna do that? So, it's a big one. Let's dig into it. Like my t-shirt. I don't care about your KD at all. Fun is where it's at. It's probably going to trigger some people, but I don't care. It's supposed to be all about the fun. Before we get into it tonight, I want to thank everybody who's watching. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun getting back into the Skill Gap. It's been a good time. It's been interesting time. I used to, when I started doing these, I had a couple of co-hosts, D Parks and Lipe. Things didn't pan out well between those guys, so now it's me, and it's been fun. Just a little more challenging because you have to hold the conversation all to yourself. But it's been nice because I've usually got a lot of good chatters, and that's why the Skill Gap continues to be the only live Call of Duty video podcast where people in chat, it's all about people in chat. It's not just me or, a couple of guys yapping at each other out into the void and, hey, everybody listen to us. It's actually interactive. That's the idea. So tonight, the battle between controller players and mouse and keyboard players. Why is it a battle, though? Why am I calling this a battle? How did it begin? Let me clear something up, right off the rip. It's actually only a battle if you're on, like, Call of Duty socials and really in tune with the conversations happening between, a lot of the hardcore players and other people that are really interested in what's happening on the social media platforms that Call of Duty activity takes place. Like Twitter's a big one. There's a lot of activity surrounding Call of Duty happening on that platform. And I'm pretty heavily involved in that, although I've been trying to cut back a lot because my mission is to advocate for the majority of the player base, and most of them are just not on Twitter. So really all I end up doing is kind of talking in a brick wall, because most of the people on Call of Duty Twitter really don't care to hear what I have to say. It's still worth some of my time, just because, those are the people that it'd be nice to change some minds and have some people realize that there's a whole other vast portion of the player base that isn't represented publicly like that and very loudly. So I'm not going to be done on Twitter, but it's not worth as much time as I've been putting into it. That's really the Pete Hines in the chat. How's it going, Pete? Good to have you here. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. we're talking about something that's pretty, in my opinion, pretty important. And if you're not on the Call of Duty socials, you may not be aware this is such a big deal, but it's a huge deal. The battle between controller players and mouse and keyboard players in Call of Duty. It's been raging for a long time. And I'm about to go into why it's a battle, because for the vast majority of the player base who aren't on Call of Duty socials, they probably don't even know this is any kind of battle that's happening. They have no idea. The reason why I say it's a battle, we're going to go to two things. We're going to go into why I'm calling this a battle, which is it really is. And we're going to go into how it all started. Like, why is this a battle? Okay. Where did this come from? So it's a battle because it's a battle that rages between two portions of the player base: controller players and mouse and keyboard players. And I did this and this because the size of these parts of the player base are generally recognized to be very different. It's kind of understood in the Call of Duty community that there's a whole lot more controller players than there are mouse and keyboard players in the Call of Duty community. Why is that? Because over the years, since the start of the franchise in 2003, actually it started as a PC game, I believe. Mouse and key was it. But then once they introduced it on console shortly after, I mean, it took off on consoles. And consoles traditionally have been the biggest platform for Call of Duty games. That has only very recently started to change. Okay, and when you're playing on console, really your only option in general is a controller, right? So that's why there are a lot more controller players than mouse and keyboard players in Call of Duty, even still to this day. But why is it a battle? So that's where it began, right? That's how this whole thing started, was because there's been so many more controller players for so long, and mouse and keyboard players now for a long time. They've been kind of just on and off complaining over and over again about the fact that two main things. One, that the input, mouse and keyboard, isn't shown enough respect or time and energy by the devs. So there's a lot of challenges with playing on mouse and keyboard that either aren't present in other games or didn't used to be present in Call of Duty games, and now they are. But for whatever reason, a lot of mouse and keyboard players just don't enjoy playing on mouse and key, playing Call of Duty mouse and key. So that's an issue. The other thing they complain about incessantly, it's constant basically, is the fact that controller players have aim assist. All right. So, that's why it's a battle, because if you're on the Call of Duty socials at all, you're bound to hear mouse and keyboard players complaining about the fact that controller players still have aim assist, or aim assist is still too strong, or sometimes they do talk about, they can't see their targets, and for them that's a big problem, whereas for controller players it's not a big problem because controller players have aim assist, so they don't need to see what they're shooting at. They can just, aim assist just shoots for them. Right? I mean, it's like okay, so the point of this podcast is not to take a side. We're not taking sides tonight. I'm not. You can do what you want, but I'm not taking a side. There are players in the majority, the players that I'm mostly concerned about, that play on controller. Most of them do, and there are some that play on mouse and keyboard. There are casual Call of Duty players that play on mouse and keyboard. Okay, I don't know any, but I guarantee there are some. Okay, there's bound to be. There's bound to be people who, have played whatever games on their PC for how long, and they've always just played whatever games those are on mouse and keyboard, and for whatever reason they decide that they want to start playing Call of Duty. So they're on either PC Game Pass or something, and they pick up the latest Call of Duty, and they're on their PC, and they start with mouse and keyboard. That's what they just always played with. They may not even have a controller. And they get into Call of Duty or Warzone, probably, if it's a free game. They're probably going to start with Warzone, I would assume. And they may pick up their mouse and keyboard and start playing Warzone and realize once they hit the gulag, they can't see anything. Or in any given engagement. They're just having challenges, and the guy on the other side of the fight seems to just lock on to them and kill them. Right, so maybe at that point they're talking to their friends, or say maybe friends that play on controller, and they're like, "What is going on here?" And they'll find out about aim assist or something, right? I mean, so, and then if they decide to really get riled up about it, they'll go on Twitter or something, and they'll be like, they'll look for what's going on, or they'll watch a YouTube video, and that's when it starts. They're going to see either mouse and keyboard players that create content, or they're going to see very high skill controller players that create content. And they're all going to say that aim assist is overpowered. Every last one of them. They're all going to say aim assist is overpowered, needs to be nerfed or something, right? And the mouse and keyboard players will also talk about how there's all these challenges with their input, and they can't see anything, or there's a lot of muzzle shake or something. There's screen shake, whatever the issues are. There's a lot of them. And actually, if there's any mouse and keyboard players in the chat tonight, I could really use your help in forming a list of what those problems are, because that's a big part of this. We want to make sure we're recording a list of what all the issues are in mouse and keyboard, so we can have those and relay those to anybody that needs them, Call of Duty, Activision, whatever. Okay, we just want to keep that running tally. Maybe I'll put them on Twitter. This is what we came up with. Boom, boom, boom. Something like that. And maybe I'll send a DM to the people I know at Activision or something. Who knows? We'll see. But it's important. And we're going to get into a lot of this stuff, because I want to have the conversation. There's a lot of complaining. Mouse and keyboard players complain about this a lot. And I don't think it's because there's nothing to it. I don't think there's complaining because they feel like complaining. I don't think they're complaining because they're a bunch of whiners. I think there's really something to it. I don't play on mouse and keyboard. I have tried it. I was able to easily beam somebody at very long range in Warzone 1 with I don't even remember what gun it was. It was a long time ago. But I picked up a ground gun, and I just beamed a guy well over 100 meters, just rat-tat-tat right at him, and I killed him. Then I turned around and went into a building to reload and stuff, and a guy pushed me and just slide canceled circles around me and took me out. I couldn't do anything. So, that was that. That was my experience with mouse and key. Played a few games of it, just enough to be dangerous, and then that was it. So that was that. But I think people that play on mouse and keyboard regularly, I think they experience issues that they don't like, they're not happy with. So I want to dive into that. I want to dive into that tonight, and I want to figure out if is there a solution. Number one, why do they keep complaining even after certain things have occurred? We're going to get into that. And number two, is there a solution? Okay. So like I said, I could use anybody's help who has experience on mouse and keyboard more than I do. And we're going to get into this. Okay. So like I said, I wanted to clear something up from the start, that really this is only a battle if you're on the Call of Duty social platforms. For most casual players that aren't on the Call of Duty socials, which is most of them, that number is declining. It's becoming a little more even now, that the number of casuals, like casual players for Call of Duty, some do continue just being casual players forever. Some don't continue to be casual players. They climb the ranks through either to be hardcore or midcore players, or maybe all the way to a hardcore player. It's kind of rare, but I think it does happen. And then there are some casual players just stop playing Call of Duty altogether. They might stop by once a year or something, like with the new release, and check it out, and then they're gone again. Like, that's kind of how casuals, but the vast majority of casuals kind of just play whenever. It's almost random, right? But they're around. They're part of their player base. A lot of casuals do just keep playing the game regularly. My friend group and I were like that from 2007 all the way to 2020, 21, basically. So a long time. And we were casual the whole way. And then I started climbing out of the casual category, because I just started caring more and devoting more time and energy to it and things like that. And I became a mid-core player, which is where I sit now. But a lot of them left. And I think everybody that listens to me or watches the podcast kind of knows the story of why all my buddies left Call of Duty. It sucks, but that's just kind of how it goes when you have a skill gap that's a little too big. A lot of people manipulating matchmaking, getting into lobbies they don't belong in, just wrecking players like my friends and I, just ruining their nights over and over and over again. Skill-based matchmaking that didn't do a good enough job, essentially. So And then any win you get, the engagement system, the engagement match, optimized matchmaking, if you get a win, then it ramps up the difficulty of your lobby, which is completely manipulative, and I can't stand it. Manipulation of your experience is awful. But all those things wrap together. My friends don't play anymore, so it's just me. And unless you're on the Call of Duty socials, you don't see any of that conversation where the mouse and keyboard players are continuously complaining about their input and about aim assist and everything else. You don't see it. You don't see it, you don't hear it, you might not even know it exists. And that's probably the majority of the player base. All right. So if you weren't aware, if you're watching this and you didn't know this is happening, Call of Duty Twitter, it's a very regular occurrence that mouse and keyboard players, of which there are a significant number on Twitter, it's a regular occurrence that they'll be on there complaining about something, either the status of their input and how unfun or difficult it is to use or whatever, or they'll be complaining about aim assist. It's constant, it happens all the time, every day. So now you know the background, okay? But and it's gotten better and worse over the years. Like there've been, looks like YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Are you guys buffering? Are you guys having any issues on the stream? Or is everything looking okay for you guys? You just let me know, I'd appreciate it. In the meantime, we'll get some music going. Yeah, anyway, so that's where we sit right now. Over the course of the last, few years, it's really had, it's been up and down. And mouse and keyboard players have had, times where they've said, oh, it's a lot better now. And they've had times when it's a lot worse. So it just depends on the game. It depends on, a million different factors. What the devs have done with the input with mouse and keyboard, things like that. In Black Ops 6, so there was a lot of hope. In Black Ops 6, there was a lot of hope from mouse and keyboard players. And that's because everybody was told. Now, once again, if you're not on Call of Duty Twitter, you probably don't see a lot of this stuff, right? So for those who aren't aware, prior to the launch of Black Ops 6, it was kind of told to they like to call themselves the Call of Duty community, even though they're a minority in the community, right? But the people on Call of Duty Twitter were pretty much made aware that there's going to be a nerf to aim assist. And this was the mouse and keyboard player community. Yeah, Treyarch were their heroes. Okay. And that's great. That's fine, right? Depends on what the nerf's going to be. So then we found out what the nerf was going to be. And kind of took the wind out of some of their sails a little bit. Because it was just a very close range nerf. Now, and I'm going to show you what the nerf ended up looking like and what it is. I'm going to show you a graph. There's a guy gaming from Mars in the chat. Welcome to the stream. Oh boy, that's weird. Look at that. The top of my water bottle came off like this. It's weird. I've never had that happen. So this nerf happened, right? This nerf happened to aim assist. And the mouse and keyboard player community, went nuts. And from their perspective, the bane of their existence was going bye-bye, or getting a nerf of some sort, right? So they were all very excited about this. And then the game came out. And here's what happened to the aim assist. All right. So you can see here that in the previous game, in Modern Warfare 3, okay, the degrees of rotation that aim assist would make your character do if you just, left the right stick alone and used your left stick, within, like, say, 5 meters, the blue line shows what could happen to your character model, essentially your gun, would pretty much stick to an enemy target if you are using rotational aim assist in hipfire, not ADS, just hipfire, okay? And if they were within roughly 5 meters, there was a lot more range of motion that the rotational aim assist would do and pull your character model onto your target as he's running by you or toward you or whatever within 5 meter range. As you can see, the orange line is Black Ops 6. That's the new game. And that basically has a flat line from 0 meters all the way out to infinity, or at least 18 meters, right? So it's basically a flat line. Excuse me. And what that means is there's only 24 or so degrees of rotation now that your character model, your gun, will stick to and follow, kind of, if as long as you're using rotational aim assist, your left stick. You got to be moving your left stick while your little white dot on screen is on the target within the hitbox. All right. There's roughly 24, 25 or so degrees of rotation that you'll follow them automatically using rotational aim assist. Whereas before in the last game, it was over 70 degrees at the top of that blue line. So, I'll kind of show you what that means, right? So let's say there's an enemy, running toward me, right? He's coming at me this way, and I've got my gun in hipfire, okay? So what'll happen is put my arm under my IEM cord, or else I'm going to rip them out of my own ears. But essentially what happens is these enemies running toward me, right? And I've got my gun out here, and if he runs past me, my gun used to go like this. Follow him all the way around, right? Like 70 degrees worth of turn, okay? Now, in the new game, if he's running by me, this is all within 5 meters. Now, if he's running by me, it goes like this. So it's like a lot less. It's less than even half that it used to be. Okay. And I'm going to show you this again. It's the same. Once you get up to like 6 meters, roughly, once you get to 6 meters, it's the same as it was. They haven't changed anything from the previous game for the mid to long range, for mid to long range fights. Okay. But in the close range, it's quite a bit weaker. Quite a bit weaker. Now, it still sticks, kind of. They use the term sticks. Most keyboard players like to use the term sticks. But if you're a controller player and you're not a super high skill player, you're a player like me or less skilled even, you know that rotational aim assist does not always do this because you're not always effectively using it. You're not always effectively using that left stick. Okay? So it a lot of times will seem like, very high skill players, you'll watch streamers and, people at that skill level, and they'll use, whenever they shoot their gun, it sticks. Like, it is on target. It is locked on. No matter what that enemy does, the gun is with them, right? That's because they know how to use rotational aim assist. They're very high skill players. But that's 10% of the player base, the controller player base, the top 10%, maybe top 20, something like that. I mean, once you get to the mid-range skill level and below, it's not a consistent use of rotational aim assist. It's not. Because I'm right around an average skill level, and I can't use it on a consistent basis in a gunfight. Like long range, yeah, it's a little easier then. But even then still, if you got a mobile enemy, he might outrun my bullets sometimes. So he can outrun my aim. It does happen. Close range, it all depends. All depends. So, aim assist sustained a pretty heavy nerf within the 5 meter range. Okay. That is very significant that's a close range engagement. I mean, that's a close quarters battle there. It's close quarters combat. That is the reason why they nerfed it. Okay. They nerfed it for 2 reasons. Number 1, observations. Right? They look at everything in the game. They look at all kinds of data. They look at everything. And they noticed something they didn't like. They didn't like what was happening within that 5-meter range. Okay. Number 2, they do listen to social media platforms like Twitter. And there were an awful lot of mouse and keyboard players, and for that matter, high skill controller players. Like Holy Shepherd is one that I got into a pretty good conversation with about this, because he used to tell me, he'd say, J-Rock, if you are in a fight with another controller player who's much lower skill, and you can tell they're lower skill. It depends, but like everybody's lower skill than Holy Shepherd, right? So if he would tell me, he'd say, I'm in a fight with another player and they're a lot lower skill, and everybody basically is, he can go after them and try to engage them in a close quarters battle and just, slide cancel circles around them and do what high skill players can do. And sometimes their aim will just randomly stick to him and kill him. And there have been clips on Call of Duty Twitter where this has happened. I mean, this has happened. Okay. So there's a lot of arguments you can make for and against a nerf to aim assist in those situations, right? Argument number 1. Well, don't mess with your food. Don't play with your food, right? If you know that can accidentally happen, just kill the guy. Don't play with your food, right? I mean, the poor guy is fighting for his life. He's up against a guy who's probably got a 2, 3, 4 times higher KD than he does, maybe more, because Holy Shepherd plays a lot of solos. So you could be a 0.5 KD player fighting a 5 KD Holy Shepherd. I have a 0.85 or something like that, and I've had Holy Shepherd in my solos lobbies. It's not fun. It never turns out well for me. Always turns out great for him, right? Which is exactly the reason why skill-based matchmaking exists in the game in the first place. If there were enough players in solos, it would be stronger in solos as well. Okay, but it's not, because there aren't enough players, and they got to keep the lobby entry time, the wait time, as low as they can. Right? And solos players are kind of generally a little more hardcore usually anyway at those levels. Once you get like people like me in higher skill, like some people do just drop into the game, very casual, they just drop it in, but I think the game probably does a pretty good job of protecting those guys. So they just drop in and they got a bunch of the people like their skill level in there, but a guy like me playing the game since 2020, since March 2020 it dropped, and man, it's just like getting a guy like Holy Shepherd in my solos lobbies is very discouraging. Pete Hines says the new system is overinflating people's egos when it comes to KD. Yeah, can you elaborate on that? Can you explain what you mean by that? Are you saying that the matchmaking, but they don't realize, Pete Hines also, he continues, says, but they don't realize it's eliminations versus deaths. Oh, I see. Yeah, because, so what he's talking about, if you're not aware, or maybe you haven't even played the new Warzone yet, but what Pete Hines is saying is that it tracks eliminations and kills and deaths instead of just kills and deaths. So eliminations are, I guess what is an elimination, Pete? Like somebody else downs a guy and you finish him, then you get an elimination for that. The other guy gets killed, you get an elimination, something like that, right? So yeah, I mean I don't know. I think I don't know, but I do know that this new game, the new version of Warzone, the Black Ops 6 version of Warzone, was supposed to have fixed a lot of issues for mouse and keyboard players. So I don't know. I don't think that the new system is just like working against them or anything. I think that's probably a broad statement you're making about the KD and the eliminations. But like as far as mouse and keyboard players go, I'm still hearing a lot of complaining on Twitter. There's a lot of complaining. I've actually seen. So here's the interesting thing. Okay. Here's the interesting thing. So we saw from that, by the way, that graph, that chart that I showed you that I pulled up on screen is from a guy named the Hexmith. Hexmith is, I think he has a YouTube channel. He's on Call of Duty Twitter. He's a mouse and keyboard player, and he kind of makes it his purpose, it seems like, to he's kind of one of the main complainer about aim assists, but he's not really complaining so much as he's just trying to show that it's overpowered. Like he'll measure how much it works, when it starts working, when it doesn't, things like that. He took the measurements for that graph. That came from him. Really nice guy. But he's a mouse and keyboard player, so he's, one of the vocal ones about how that input has challenges, things like that. Okay, so so anyway, we got a nerf to controllers with the Black Ops 6 version of Warzone. Okay, it was an aim assist nerf, a rotational aim assist nerf within 5 meters. Okay, so that's done. It's there. I don't think they're going to bring aim assist back stronger within that range, so we need to just be able to deal with it, my fellow controller players. But how are we doing with that? How are we doing? How are we feeling? Me personally, I'll give you my personal experience. I don't have like 14 days of playtime in the new game or anything like that. I don't stream it every night like some people do. I don't have time. I just don't have time. I mean, I got content to produce, things like that. I haven't had a huge issue with it, but I'm right in that area. I'm right in that zone, the skill zone, where I think it can make a big difference. So I wonder if other people are having a hard time with it. Here's why I say that. I see Schnord in the chat. Schnord, welcome. Schnord was here for the last one. He's an extremely high skill player. Very, very fun to watch. He does a lot of solo streaming too on Twitch. Very good dude, but very high skill mouse keyboard player. And, has the same, he's got the same issues. He's one of those that doesn't complain about aim assist as much as I just see him talk about the challenges of the input. And I'm going to get into some of this a little bit later. But right now, what I want to tell you is I'm right in that skill area in the player base where I start to be able to engage in successful close quarters combat. I can slide cancel in and out of a gunfight, and I can kill, not all the time, but I can kill players that I'm fighting in that method, in that style, close quarters. A lot of players below my skill level, which is roughly half the player base, are maybe not there yet, right? So they're not going to willingly, consciously engage in close quarters battles, and not necessarily going to be trying to outmaneuver enemies and shoot, fire while sliding and things like that. Stuff that would happen within that 5 meter range, where it would be extremely, extremely helpful for them to have that much higher, much stronger rotational aim assist, right? So I don't think that close range aim assist nerf is hurting the majority of the player base on controller. I really don't. I think where it's doing some damage, maybe, is to some people in roughly my skill bracket, which is a pretty sizable skill bracket. The average skill level players. That's what I think. Schnort says, I don't even feel the nerf, but I can tell that some people I fight are feeling it. Yeah, and Schnord, honestly, Schnord wins most of his gunfights anyway, chat, so it's not like, it's only gonna, it only probably made things a little easier for him. Yeah, I mean, not that he needed things to be made easier, but maybe a little less frustrating against some enemies that would randomly, stick to him if he's trying to outmaneuver him or something. So for guys like Schnord, it's like a minimal change too, just because he's so much better than most of the enemies he fights. Most players do not have that luxury. Pete Hines says, have you personally tried Kit? Yes, I have. It's been a long, long time. But like I told the story when I first fired up the stream, back on early Verdansk, I think it was probably the first version of Verdansk. I picked up I was in solos and I picked up a ground loot AR or something. I don't remember what gun it was. And I saw an enemy at, well over 100 meters away, and I thought, I'm going to try to shoot this guy. And I did. I killed him. First try. I just used my mouse and I shot him and killed him. But then I tried to go into a building to take cover, and because I knew other people would come after me. It's just how solos are. Like third parties are the way in solos. So I went into a building nearby, and I was reloading and stuff, and some guy pushed me. And he was either on controller or he was just a much better mouse and keyboard player. Which doesn't take much to be better than I was because I just picked it up. I played maybe, it was one gaming session for me, so like one night worth of mouse and keyboard. I don't total half dozen games or something maybe max. And the guy wrecked me. Like it was a close quarters fight, and I couldn't follow him. So, but I probably didn't have any decent settings, and I didn't have any practice. I didn't have any of the stuff that I would have needed to have. So, but that's the limit of my mouse and keyboard experience. So back to controller players. It's not affecting me a ton that I can tell so far. So far I played more Black Ops 2 between when that game dropped and when the new Warzone dropped, than I've played Warzone so far. And in Black Ops, it didn't affect me hardly at all. I was able to pull off some pretty fun plays. But I don't know if I'm the norm, right? That's my point. So if anybody else is an average controller player, how are you feeling? How are you feeling the nerf to aim assist up close within 5 meters? I would love to know that. Pete Hines says, "Would you try it in this latest version?" No, I'm too old. I'm too old. I really don't have any. I don't have any reason or need or desire to switch inputs. Maybe 20 years ago, I would have had the time and energy and desire to try a different input, but I have enough trouble on controller. I don't need to introduce any more challenges to the game into my life. You know what I mean? It would just make me even more frustrated than I am on controller. And my KD would go way down. And I wouldn't be able to play the way I like to play, which is kind of aggressive and like trying to, I call it smartly aggressive. So yeah, I don't think I'll ever try it. I'll probably never try it again. Cause I'll never be good enough to feel comfortable. Anyway, okay. So, what we really need to know, what we really need to find out is we really need to find out how mouse and keyboard players are doing. And here's one thing that I remember seeing in Schnoord's stream, one of Schnoord Blungus' streams. He was in the gulag, and he was fighting an enemy that he literally, it must have been the gun he was using, but there was so much muzzle smoke and jiggle and flash and things at the end of his gun, he literally lost sight of his target. Literally lost sight of his target. It's Schnoord, so I'm pretty sure he still killed the guy, but he couldn't see him. Okay. This leads into a whole conversation that I hear from mouse and keyboard players saying the visibility when you're shooting is terrible. I generally tend to agree. It can be pretty bad, especially if you're using certain guns, certain builds, iron sights, things like that. I hear a lot of mouse and keyboard players say it's a problem for mouse and keyboard and not for controller players. All right. Now, there was recently a very high skill controller player named OP Marked. Okay. And a friend of mine named OGZ Labs, he's a streamer, solo streamer. He's an older guy like me. As a matter of fact, he's older than I am. He's like 10 or 11, 12 years older than me even. But real good dude, real nice guy. He's been playing Call of Duty for a long time. He streams solos. And he and I had a conversation about this on Twitter. All right. We had a conversation about this on Twitter. And basically, OP Mark was talking about something. I don't remember what he was talking about. It was visibility or something. And OGZ Labs asked him, about mouse and keyboard. And he basically told him that he just, he can't see anything and it doesn't matter on controller, but it matters on mouse and keyboard essentially. And so I responded to that conversation. I said, "We have an OP Marked is a is a top 0.1% player. He knows how to use aim assist. And it's true. If you know how to use rotational aim assist, you almost don't need to see your target. You can shoot people. You can kind of feel when your rotational aim assist is locked onto a target. Then you just pull the trigger, right? But you're good enough to do that. You're good enough to use that. Okay. I am going to turn the kilobytes back up and see if that's what it is, because right now it kind of looks like all right, the difference is when you can't see on mouse and keyboard, you just can't see your target, and you need to be able to see your target. Everybody correct me if I'm wrong. Any mouse and keyboard players in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong. When you're on mouse and key, you need to be able to see your target to be able to shoot him and hit him. When you're on controller, the argument that I've seen on Call of Duty Twitter is you don't necessarily need to have good visibility. You don't need to have good visibility to shoot, to aim and hit and shoot your target. My argument is that, yeah, if you're on Call of Duty Twitter, you're looking at it through high skill blinders. I call them like streamer glasses, right? You're looking at them through a certain lens of the folks that are on Call of Duty Twitter, which are generally hardcore, higher skill players, or at least people that are watching those kind of people play. And those guys on controller are hitting everything. They don't necessarily need to see everybody to hit them. They can deal with the lower visibility. Okay. All right. So the problem with that is that it's very, it's not ethnocentric, but like, I don't know, skill centric. It's like, it's only a certain part of the player base that really applies to, that viewpoint really applies to. And that's a very high skill, like minority part of the player base. Guys like me, it just dropped again. All right, well, I'm going to lower that. I wonder if it's because I lowered the, we'll put it back down. That's very strange. I guess it's possible. It could be the internet, but thanks for letting me know, Pete. I appreciate it. If you're not a really high skill controller player, you are not able to consistently use rotational aim assist. Period. That's the challenge. That's the problem with that line of thinking. Okay. Yeah, Pete, you're a legend. I appreciate you, man. That's the problem with that line of thinking. Okay. Same as everything else on Call of Duty Twitter. Everybody's got a very like above average focus, above average skill level focus. Nobody cares, gives two shits about anybody below average on the skill, in the skill brackets. They just don't, right? They don't think about anybody like that. They think that all those people just drop in once in a while and get their asses handed to them all night long, crack another beer, and they're okay with it. Sure, there are some people like that, but that's not everybody. Okay. So that's the issue here, right? So mouse and keyboard players, I understand. So that, but there's two separate issues. There's two separate issues there. Okay. One issue has it's totally legit, 100% legit. And that issue is that mouse and keyboard players have trouble with visibility, screen shake, other things like that. Please let me know in the chat if you have other issues that mouse and keyboard players experience specifically related to your input. Okay. It's difficult. It can be challenging and not fun to use that input due to visual reasons, or like I've heard issues before, like the crosshair isn't where it's supposed to be when you're aiming, or it moves. I mean, that would be frustrating, I think, right? Especially when that's like entirely how you aim and hit your target. Okay. So I think I agree. Those kinds of things, 100% in my opinion, totally legit things to complain about. Then the other issue doesn't just affect mouse and keyboard players. The other issue affects controller players, which are by and large the majority of the player base, right? And that's the issue of aim assist. So, personally, I tend to listen and sympathize when I hear mouse and keyboard players talk about their input and how it's, got all these challenges, right? I tend to kind of shut off when I hear mouse and keyboard players complain about aim assist. And the reason is because they either don't understand or don't care that for most controller players, having some sort of rotational aim assist and regular aim assist is absolutely 100% necessary for them to have any enjoyment of the game whatsoever. Get any kills at all. Okay? That's me. Okay? So that's me. I don't know if that's you, but that's me. What I would like to do is I would like to find out, number one, why isn't Call of Duty fixing the challenges the mouse and keyboard players have with their input? Does anybody have any ideas? The only one I can think of is that they don't care because there's so few of them. But if that's the reason, well, and what goes along with that is they just keep playing. Like Call of Duty looks at data for everything. That's how they make their decisions. It's like any other company, they make decisions for their games, for their products based on data. So if they look at mouse and keyboard players and they see, hey, these guys play a lot, they keep playing. We don't see any issues with their gameplay. Right? And all they see is what's on Twitter, right? The social media managers are coming to them saying, guys, most keyboard players are bitching a lot again today. Call of Duty is going to look at their data and say, well, we don't see any issues. Like all the mouse and keyboard player population is not dropping. Like their playtime's not going down. So what's going on? Right? So like that could be one thing. That's one that I think is a possibility. I think that's a possible reason, right? But I wonder, aren't there any mouse and keyboard players on staff there? Like we know, like a lot of people on Call of Duty Twitter say there's no way Call of Duty play test their games before they release. They sure do. They absolutely do. They go through QA. They do all that stuff. I mean, they do, right? Aren't there any mouse and keyboard players that'll voice concerns about the input before the game? Now that goes back to the same argument as before. Maybe it's just not a high enough priority for them because there aren't that many. I don't know. We really don't know how many mouse and keyboard players there are playing Call of Duty games. We really don't know. One thing I will tell you, yeah, Pete, for sure, man. I feel sorry for that guy too. %. I feel sorry for those guys too. I will tell you that ever since the beginning of Modern Warfare 3 Warzone, I have been running into a whole lot more mouse and keyboard players in my lobbies. Like a lot more. It's not even close. It's like night and day difference. So I think a couple things happened to me personally. I think a couple things happened to me personally back then when Modern Warfare 3 Warzone started. Number one, I think I started playing a bit differently. I started playing a little sweatier. I incorporated a lot more movement into my gameplay. And I think the game picked up on that. Okay? I think the game picked up on that and started putting me into higher skill lobbies. I noticed it for sure. I think maybe a side effect of that happening to me was that in my higher skill lobbies, there are more mouse and keyboard players because they're generally higher skill players on average than the average controller player. So that's entirely possible. Okay, that's just me. It's just like my story, right? I don't know. But back to the situation at hand. Is the aim assist so we know there's a lot of issues with mouse and keyboard that should be fixed. All right. I will not argue against that. As a matter of fact, I argue for that and I advocate for that. I think I don't care if there's 25 mouse and keyboard players around the world. If you're going to allow an input to be used in your game, you should make sure it works properly, right? And if they fix all the visual nonsense, now the crosshair issue, I don't know if controller players deal with that the same way that mouse and keyboard players do. I don't know if that's strictly a mouse and keyboard player thing. I don't know. But all the visual nonsense and junk that happens at the end of your gun when you shoot it, getting rid of all that would be very beneficial to controller players too, in my opinion. Right? The vast majority of us. Now, the very high skill controller players, like the Snord Blungus equivalent controller players, right? So like Holy Shepherd, Polish Moon, those guys play on controller. Joe Woe, Lucky Chamu, Swag. I mean, there's so many people that are very, very highly skilled to play controller. Diaz Biffle, Shifty, Soka, those guys, they all. And if you don't know who those guys are, they're streamers, competitive Call of Duty players, World Series of Warzone competitors. Nobody that you really need to know about. Just have fun with the game. But I'm aware of them, and I use them as an example because they're all very highly skilled at the game, particularly on controller. Every single one of those names that I mentioned, those people are very, very, very good at using aim assist to its fullest in every fight, in every match they play. Every single one. The vast majority, they're the top 0.1%. All of them. Most controller players are not in the top 0.1%, obviously. They're in the bottom 99%. Right? So like the top players, for sure. It's not a major issue. This is why a lot of the top players are also okay with nerfs to aim assist, because it doesn't affect them. It affects many of their competitors. It affects anybody that's like lower skill than them. You got a 5 KD player, doesn't care if you nerf aim assist. Doesn't care, wants you to nerf aim assist. But a 1 KD player, maybe even a 2 KD player, yeah, you nerf it too hard, they're going to pay for it. You nerf it too hard, them and everybody below them on the skill ladder is going to pay for it. Going to pay hard. And that's just the way it is. So that's personally why I don't advocate for any larger nerfs to aim assist. I don't, and I don't think I ever will. What I really want to see is a fix for all the challenges that mouse and keyboard has to its input, just the way it plays, the way mouse and keyboard players feel about their input. There are guys like, I don't know, Snord, if you're still there, have you changed to controller? I heard recently you might have changed to controller because you were so frustrated with what was going on with mouse and keyboard, with that input. I mean, Snord's an M&K player. And I know there's other M&K players that are switching to controller. Is this strictly for aim assist, to have the benefits of aim assist? Or is it because, like, they can't see? Stuff like that. Right? I don't know. Oh, so Snord has been on controller. That's right. I think I knew that. I think I watched one of your streams and I brought that up in the stream. So Snord played Warzone on mouse and keyboard until the latest version of Warzone. The Black Ops 6 version of Warzone. Muffin Man in the chat. Yeah. So did you guys see what Muffin Man said? He said, also think the aim assist is fine now, although I've never played M&K. So Muffin Man and I are kind of similar there. I mean, I basically have never played it. Like, my dabbling in it 4 years ago barely counts, right? And then Muffin Man says, I know the visual recoil has been horrible for that as well. Yeah, so that's the thing. That's like the visual recoil. But that's awful for the vast majority of players. Nah, Muff Man, that's okay, man. You're never. If there's one dude in the face of Earth that never needs to apologize to me, it's Muffin Man. He's my bro. Schnorblunga said, I did all of Warzone 1 and 2 on uncontrolled. No, you didn't. Did you really? Okay. So I was wrong. I thought Schnord was a dedicated M&K player. He only switched to mouse and keyboard. Schnord, why in the world did you switch to mouse and keyboard just for Modern Warfare 3 Warzone? Why did you do that? I'm really curious. I mean, I'd love to know. So you don't have to tell me. You can, or DM or something. I'm really curious though. I'd love to hear it now, if you want. But that's interesting. I didn't know that. It was fun. Just did it because fun. Control was getting boring. Just wanted to. Okay. So, Schnord Blungus was so. This is how it was. I swear to God, it has to be this. Schnord was so good on controller that he was getting bored and decided to switch inputs for a challenge because this was fun, right? And then after Warzone 3, now he's gone back. I mean, Jesus, man. I can't imagine being so good at Call of Duty that I get bored and decide I want to try a whole new input. Like, I would have to be a 3KD player and regularly be able to drop 20 bombs. Schnord, you're crazy, man. That's impressive. Anyway, so here's where we sit right now. Mouse and keyboard players have had gripes with their input off and on for a very long time. Okay? The new version of Warzone rolls around. It has a nerf to aim assist up close, rotational aim assist nerf up close within 5 meters. It's not somehow, I guess, not good enough. And while I heard mouse and keyboard players say that mouse and keyboard was great on Black Ops 6, the multiplayer game, I've now heard them say it's not great on Warzone again. And I saw in one of Schnord's streams that it's the visual, must have been a visual thing. So, like, I think the issue here is it's prioritization. I'm pretty sure it's prioritization. If mouse and keyboard as an input was a high enough priority for them, they would be fixing it. So here's what I propose. I think people hear mouse and keyboard players, I'll preface my proposition. I think a lot of people hear mouse and keyboard players complain about aim assist. I don't think they're going to nerf that anymore. I really don't. So maybe leave that alone and just talk about and post clips and tag Call of Duty people we know, tag the brands, whatever. Tag them in clips showing how awful it is and how hard it is for you to see and do whatever you want to do with mouse and keyboard. Focus on that. Focus on the input itself. Because I don't think Call of Duty is going to nerf aim assist anymore. I think it's in a pretty good spot. I think it's an effective and fair compromise. I really don't think they're going to do it. So I think we need to focus on fixing the actual input itself and not messing with controller players. They are the vast majority. I don't think Call of Duty is going to screw them over. I don't think they're going to do any more. Right? The other thing I think we need to do, I mean, this is like an act of desperation, essentially, if you guys want to do this. But I think mouse and keyboard players who are fed up with their input, don't change to controller. Okay, I mean, if that's not going to make you happy, don't do it. If it's going to make you happy, do it. If it's not going to make you happy, changing to controller, you got to stop playing. If Call of Duty sees that the mouse and keyboard players are dropping off the game, they might pay attention to the mouse and keyboard input and try to and prioritize it. I'm sorry. But like if you want it fixed, that may be the only option. Schnord says, I'll use Fortnite for an example. Fortnite added a human reaction time to aim assist. I play Fortnite with my family and they had no idea they did that until I told them. Yeah. Yep. I heard about that in Fortnite. I think Fortnite, for at least when I play with my boys, they use bots. So my boys, the aim assist thing isn't a big deal. I don't even know if they noticed that it changed because they're still getting kills. If you do any kind of drastic nerf to aim assist in Call of Duty and Warzone, people are going to notice it immediately. And I think because there's no bots to shoot, and there's no guaranteed kills in Warzone, even for very low skill players, I think it'd be a big problem. Now, this is a whole different subject. I'm happy to get into it for a little bit here, even though it's not really the subject of this podcast, but I am all for putting bots in Warzone. That is a hot take. Put the bots in Warzone lobbies, not like Schnord's Warzone lobbies, but like I'm happy to have bots in my lobbies. All my buddies would have been happy to have bots in our lobbies. I know a lot of you guys might, scoff at that idea, poo-poo that idea. But as long as you can't tell it's a bot, who cares? I mean, bots, they should be fully capable of shooting and killing a player, a real player. Right? I mean, that's how the bots would have to be. They would have to be done right. Okay. But if you can tailor the experience that the casual players have, if you could tailor the experience the casual players have in the game with bots, up and raise and lower the difficulty of the bots and things in lobbies, then you get 120 players on Urzikstan, and a third of them are bots or something, right? That way you can also decrease wait times. You can have more games going on at the same time, so you're serving more people, more players. You're not going to have bots in any of the more competitive lobbies, probably like any lobbies higher than my skill level. So Schnord's never going to see a bot in Warzone, nor should he, because he probably doesn't want that. He also said that could also stop two boxers can't post a world record of bots, AI bots. I mean, yeah, right. So, I mean, there'd be a lot of benefits to it. You just have to make sure that you're doing it right. Because for the same reason they haven't increased skill-based matchmaking more is the same reason you got to be careful with the bots. So it's story time. Yeah, and Muffin Man says would help connection-wise as well. It would. I mean, it would. It would do a lot of good things. It's just a lot of people at the high end of the skill chain their egos just won't let them be okay with having AI bots in the game. It's whatever. I get it. I do. They're competitive people. It's fine. But back in spring of this year, of 2024, Call of Duty decided for multiplayer they were going to take half the player base and they were going to decrease the amount of skill factored into the matchmaking. They didn't remove SBMM. They didn't take it out. They just decreased the level of importance that skill has in the matchmaking. And roughly 80-90% of the player base started playing less, right? It wasn't like a huge number of people left or anything, but they just played less. It was enough that the test only ran 2 weeks and Call of Duty was like, no, we're not doing that anymore. They also turned skill-based matchmaking up higher than normal. And then that top 10% said, screw this, we're playing less. Right? So Call of Duty doesn't want that either. Call of Duty is constantly trying to find sweet spots. This is also why Call of Duty is constantly cranking out different types of games. Like we can go from a boots on the ground Call of Duty game to a jetpack Call of Duty game within a span of a couple of years. Or less. I mean, that's happened throughout the history of Call of Duty. Okay? They're constantly trying to find what's going to work for their player base right now. What do our people want right now? Right now, what do they want right now? Let's give it to them. Let's figure it out and give it to them. So they run like every other company. And I was in product management for a long time, so I know how this works. You run focus groups and you study this stuff. till you're blue in the face, and you try to figure out what the best course of action is, and then you do it. You have to commit, and you have to do it, and you iterate, and you change things along the way as needed, but that's how you do it. Right? So Call of Duty, I think, at some point, should go the route of Fortnite and start putting bots in lobbies. Okay? Now, they also, and this is a totally different subject, they still need to fix what's going on with mouse and keyboard as an input, right? I don't think those two things are related at all. But that's just my take. I would love to know, so Schnord, you're a mouse and keyboard player, or at least you have been on a consistent basis. You have a ton of experience on mouse and keyboard. Pete Hines, I don't know if you're still in the chat. Does anybody in the chat, is anybody in there a mouse and keyboard player? Do you guys have a different point of view on this whole subject than anything I have said so far? Like, for example, does anybody think aim assist needs a much bigger nerf? I would love to hear it. I would love to talk about it. Angela Kathleen, hey, I'd love to know why you think bots should be put in the Warzone and how that would be helpful at all. Well, like I said before, I just think if a lot of the lower skill, average and below skill lobbies had bots, some AI bots in them, everybody's happy. Everybody's getting kills at some point in time. It's like there's a mode in Warzone right now called Boot Camp, which has that. You're going to have a couple of human teams, and the rest are all teams of bots. I had some pretty low skill, well, one particular low skill friend, another friend with, kind of skill relative to mine, kind of, but very low play time these days. So he needed to relearn the game essentially. So we would play some boot camp. It wasn't for me, it was for them. I would rack up 15 kills, whatever, like easy, but they would have a blast because they got some kills. They would get 5-6 kills and then we die or we win or whatever. But they really enjoyed that. And they didn't care they were shooting bots. Didn't care. The problem comes in my opinion, is if if a player at my level knows they're shooting a bot, I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy shooting bots. I don't want to be shooting bots that I know are bots. You're going to have AI bots in the game. You can't know they're AI bots. All right. So Schnord says it needs a nerf without a doubt. All other games have been. They can do a nerf that casuals won't even know happened, but the top 20% will notice, and it'll help MK. I would love to know what that looks like. Like, what does an aim assist nerf look like that only some are going to notice and casuals wouldn't? I'd love to know about that. Angela Kathleen says, I personally am 1.5 KD. I know I feel much better knowing I earned my KD from beating real players over bots. So here's the thing. Angela, you should not have bots in your lobbies. You're a 1.5 KD player. You're literally you're a top 10% player. No, I know you may not think that. There's a lot of very good players out there that don't think they're good. Like, I know guys that think that I've had people tell me they're 1.5, sometimes 1.7 or whatever KD, tell me they're bots. I'm like, brother. Brother. Yeah. And if you're a 0.25 or 3 KD player, you're literally like a top 1% player in the whole world. So it's like, so Angela, yeah, you're easily a top 10% player. Yeah, your lobbies should not have AI bots in them. So don't worry, it wouldn't affect you at all in my plan. Right? But but they're not worried about you leaving the game. Right? That's not Call of Duty's concern. They're worried about 20 million other people leaving the game, like happened in Caldera. Caldera was hemorrhaging casual players. Like, they botched the console launch. The skill gap kind of kept creeping up and up and up over time. They had a lot of people VPNing and two-boxing, manipulating matchmaking into those lobbies and just wrecking people's games. Happened to me, my friends, all the time. There were a lot of reasons Caldera had issues. So, I don't know. That's my thoughts. Snort says the difference in accuracy between an average high skill controller player is more than 10% higher than average high skill mouse keyboard. Well, yeah, that makes sense to me because I would say that makes perfect sense. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, just because a high skill controller player knows how to use rotational aim assist consistently. Like, I mean, right? And most controller players don't. And then Snort also says human reaction time plus reduce the degrees of rotation by just a few degrees. I mean, they already did that. Like, here, I'll show you what I had it before. You might have missed it. Got to go back to full cam for that. There. So this is what the Hacksmith did. I saw this on Twitter. This is from Hacksmith. So they went from degrees, which is like 70, 80 degrees back in Modern Warfare 3 at, up close, to 25 now, 24 degrees of rotation. So they've made a massive change to aim assist through the first few meters, right? And now it's the same as it used to be, starting at like 5 meters. So, I mean, if you're in very close range, and to be honest, like Muffin Man said before, this kind of nerf to aim assist isn't going to affect most players because most players are not getting into a bunch of close quarters engagements. They're not like, they're not confident enough to be pushing other teams or other players and trying to slide cancel and break their cameras, and they're not going to attack like that. They're not aggressive like that in general, right? Majority of player base. Like now, Angela at 1.5 KD, she might be doing things like that, right? She might have the skill for that, right? So that nerf on controller may affect her, but she's also much higher skill, so she may be able to work her way through it. Right? Which is, she got to work harder to get those close quarters kills on controller. But she can probably still do it. So, people like me, though, which I'm literally like about half her KD, we're the ones but that's what we're working on. We have to think about doing those things as we're doing them, as we're playing the game. It doesn't come like automatically or as naturally as it would for Angela. Right? So, I mean, that's just that. So that's more of a challenge for people like me. But fortunately, like Muffin Man said earlier, with him too, apparently, it hasn't caused us a big problem. It hasn't caused me a big problem yet. It may, once I start playing more, it may cause me a problem. I don't know. I hope not, but I don't know. So anyway, that's so that's that. Okay, what else does Schnard say? Human reaction time plus reduce the degrees of rotation. Yeah, so the human reaction time thing, I'm also okay with. I'm okay with that too. I don't think that should be nerfed to a huge level, but I do think it should be one of those things where, if you're shooting at an enemy and another enemy runs in front of that enemy, it shouldn't snap away from that one enemy onto the other one. Like, it needs to be made smart, more human-like. It needs to understand you were shooting at a target. Why in the world did you pull me off that guy and put me on another guy? Why did you do that? Right? That'll get people killed. Right? And that's frustrating. So I'm okay with that too. King in the chat. Yeah. The legendary King, everybody. Yeah, so Schnord, I'm okay with that too. And he says for all ranges. Okay, so I think Schnord is saying that he thinks that there needs to be an additional few degrees worth of nerf to rotational aim assist, like across the board, from at all ranges, from right next to you, like 0 meters, up to wherever. Okay. I don't know. I mean, for the longer range, mid to long range fights, where the majority of controller players are getting into their fights, that's where I'm mostly concerned about, because I think right now, if you get a 0.5 or 0.7 KD player and he's in a lobby against another similar player at his skill level. All right. They're both going to have similar issues trying to shoot each other and hit each other and kill each other. Okay. That's the idea. That's why I think SBMM is such a good thing, because those two players are at a, that's a fair feeling fight, right? But you get a 0.5 or 0.6 or 7 KD player fighting Angela, for example, at a 1.5 KD, and those players are in each other's lobbies sometimes. That does happen. It's going to be even more frustrating for that lower KD player when they feel like they can't hit any of their shots. Like their gun is not working the way it's supposed to, and that's how, if you nerf the aim assist, it's going to feel like that, I think, for the lower skill players. I don't know. What I really don't want us to be advocating for nerfing stuff that's going to affect the majority of the player base really negatively, just to get a small positive change for the minority. Right? That's what I'm always looking for on Twitter and things like that. That's what I want to avoid. So that's why, I kind of I take my, essentially 17 years worth of Call of Duty casual player experience, and talking to and knowing hundreds of them over the years and playing with them a lot back in the day to now. I don't play as much now anymore, but I used to play a ton, and I used to play with anybody I could play with. I used to have hundreds of people. Not so much anymore, but I think I know a lot about the casual player base. So whenever I hear about things that people are talking about or asking for, Call of Duty's going to change this or that or whatever, I'm always kind of weighing that in my mind. Not what I want, right? That's not really that important, because I'm okay if I never play Call of Duty again. It's not going to kill me. I enjoy it. It's fun, obviously. I wouldn't have started the COD Players Union if it wasn't fun. I wouldn't do this if it wasn't fun. But I want the game to be fun for as many people as possible. Not just the top tier skilled players. I don't want the bottom, the average players and below and lower skill players. I don't want them to get all frustrated and decide they're going to play less or quit altogether. That happened to me with my friends, and it sucked. Okay? And I don't want that to happen to everybody else. So, that's my viewpoint on everything Call of Duty. I just want as many people as possible to enjoy the games. That's really that's why I do what I do. So, that is why in the mouse and keyboard, debate, mouse and keyboard versus controller, in my opinion, just because there's so many more of them, I think controller needs to win. I think controller players have probably, like Schnort says, the close range aim assist is good right now. I agree, it's fine right now, because I don't think it affects the majority of the player base, and it's doing what it needs to do, and the average me and higher skill up from me. But the majority of people, I don't think it's going to have a major impact, right? But doing more than that, I think might start to impact the majority of the player base negatively, to a point where it's a problem. And I don't think we should ever do that. I don't think we should do that. Sacrifice a majority for a minority, or vice versa. Really, we should find as happy of a medium as we can. In this case, mouse and keyboard was apparently, according to the data, suffering under the weight of a close range aim assist that was OP. Right? So there was obviously some data there to support their what they did to it. Right? And I'm okay with that. We know that I'm an advocate of Call of Duty, doing things based on data. I'm an advocate of them telling us the data sometimes, like they've done for skill-based matchmaking. They've given us data. I don't want it to be a thing where, and I think this is probably going to happen. It's happened with the APIs. It's happened with learning what the player counts are, MAUs, DAUs. They're going to take away stuff that we don't appreciate. We whine and complain a lot to them. We we want to know, we have an API, right? So what do? We come up with sites that show everybody's KDs and the KDs of lobbies and things like that. And what do we do with it? What do we do with that information? Right? We lobby surf. Right? We use it to rip on people that have lower KDs. You get into a fight with somebody on Twitter, what do? You look them up in warzone.stats.gg and post their KD for the world to see on Twitter and rip on them for it, make fun of them. Right? I mean, it's, you know, we get into lobbies and we use information that we're given wrongly or like for negative reasons. Okay. So now the APIs are gone. We can't look anything up anymore. Right? We don't know the KDs of lobbies. We don't have that information. Right? I mean, that we've done this. Like, this has been how we've treated the information Call of Duty's given us. We complain about skill-based matchmaking. So what does Call of Duty do? They say, look, okay, fine, we're going to open up our methods. We're going to open up our black books for a little bit. We're going to give you a couple pages and show you what we've done. So they give us a white paper on skill-based matchmaking. What does the Call of Duty player base do? They say, oh, that's bullshit. You guys are lying. You're not telling us the whole truth. Your methodology's wrong, or you didn't have a third party analyze this, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So I mean, Call of Duty's motivation for giving the Call of Duty player base, you say effectively Call of Duty Twitter, their motivation for giving COD Twitter what they want is probably going down for things like that. Because they just give it to them and they don't do the right thing with it. They don't appreciate it. You know, call them liars, whatever. So, Rage Fun 09, I'm subbing to you. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, I just think if we're going to ask for things, we need to appreciate them. Just my opinion. Right? It's a video game. It's supposed to all be about fun. Right? Like, I'm willing to admit that aim assist needed a nerf up close. I saw some of those clips, and while I don't think it was worth all the complaining a lot of players did, I'm glad they did the nerf. I'm glad they had the close range nerf. It makes sense to me, right? And if Call of Duty did it, I'm willing to assume they had some data that backed up all the complaining. Okay, fine. Great. Okay, so what else though? Like, why is there still complaining? I wonder, and please, mouse and keyboard players, tell me if this is true. I wonder if there's ever going to be enough. Let me, theory time. It's theory time. I have a theory, depending on my mood of the day. I have a theory that even if Call of Duty completely took away aim assist from controller players, I think there'd still be mouse and keyboard players on Call of Duty Twitter complaining about it. Something with controller players they'd still complain about something. Now, that's not everybody. There's plenty of reasonable mouse and keyboard players out there. Right? They would still have some things to complain about. Like if they never fix the visual issues that mouse and keyboard players have to deal with. Fine. But I think if they removed aim assist completely, or rotational aim assist completely, and all controller players had was just regular aim assist, just a little bit of stickiness to the hitbox, and that's it. Not the rotational part where you move your left stick and it sticks. I think if they remove that entirely, the RAA, rotational, from controller players, I think mouse and keyboard players would still complain about aim assist. It just seems like that. I don't know if it's true. But it just seems like that to me. Am I wrong? Do you think I'm wrong? I don't know. Rage Fun 09 says, I want Call of Duty to bring back the Marco and the MP40 and the MAC-10. And all those SMGs and ARs from Warzone 1 to come back. I miss them. Oh, dude. Think about that, though. We already have 170 guns in the game. We have 170 guns in the game, man. I mean, I get you. I do. I get you. I just, a lot of those guns were fun. I had fun using a lot of those guns. I mean, the MP40, MAC-10, you could zoom around with that thing. But yeah, I like the new guns too. You know, I mean, I don't think we can have any more guns. Like, honestly, I'd love to get rid of the the MW2 and MW3 guns and just have the Black Ops 6 guns. Am I going to get crucified for that one? I don't know. But that's what I would like. I mean, I don't think we need a lot more variety. We just need better of the new stuff. The new stuff just needs to work right. Mad Dog PC Gamer, welcome. He says, no doubt there would be some complaining about it, but it comes down to there are a lot of other effects besides aim assist. Oh, there's all kinds of things in the game. There's the effects of different higher-end controllers, allowing scripts and macros as well. So that's an entirely different thing. That mouse and keyboard players have access to all that stuff too. If you're on a PC, like, you have access to cheats regardless of whether you're on controller or mouse and keyboard. I mean, right? That's true. Like, that's almost a PC exclusive issue, is the cheating situation. So yeah, I mean, I agree. King says, it's true. Yeah, I think so. Some people just gotta complain. I mean, some people just gotta complain. So I don't know. No doubt there are scripts and macros on mouse and keyboard, but Call of Duty puts a limit on these. Really? What do you mean? They have a limit on those for mouse and keyboard, but not controller? Is that what you're saying? I don't understand. If you can clarify, that'd be great. Muffin Man says, I refuse to use anything other than Black Ops 6 guns. Yeah, I'm done using the Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3 guns in Warzone. Like, I'm not doing... Muffin Man loves the shirt. Hey, man. Thank you. Yeah, I don't care about your KD. I don't care. Like, I just want to have fun. I don't care about your KD. Don't care about my KD. Like, I just want to have a good time. Let's see. The PP919 kind of feels like, yes. Yeah, the PP919 is really good. It's really good. It's fun to use. I really enjoy it. Mad Dog says, like, left click macros. What is I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. For using on guns like semi-autos or turning semi-auto shotties into auto shotties. Yeah, but I mean, you can do that on mouse and keyboard too, like the scroll wheel, right? Where you can just scroll it and have it keep shooting over and over again. Like, that was the thing for a long time. As a matter of fact, I had a friend who used to use the FAL. Remember the FAL? That back in the day, the FAL was like the cheater gun. The FAL was like the cheater gun. And I remember he and I were playing duos one time. And he killed a streamer. And we figured out that he was a streamer, and we went to look at his stream after that, and he was calling my friend a cheater because he killed him with the FAL. He wasn't cheating. He's on a PlayStation. At the time, it was probably a PlayStation 4. But he was using the FAL, so he got called a cheater. I remember that. I'll never forget that. That was fun. I think I actually have a video about that on my channel or something. I should go look at that one again. Let's see. Mad Dog says COD as a software will start glitching out with using them in Razer software. I can't tell you I know anything about that stuff. I mean, I don't try to cheat. It sounds like you might have experienced that. So, I mean, I hope you're not, trying to cheat. I don't advocate that at all. But I never have tried to cheat, so I don't even know how to start. I wouldn't even know where to start. Daddy Dad says, I like where the meta is right now. Nothing is really standing out. But yeah, I mean, now there's a stock, right, for the XM4. I just found out about this today. There's a stock for the XM4 that gives it makes it a beam. And I have no idea how to unlock it or how to get it. Like, when I go into Call of Duty, it says that it's like unlock. It says unlock at level none. And then it says, after that, it says level 1. The gun is past level 1. I'm past level 1. When do I get it? I don't know. I would love to use it. Yeah, King loves it. Yeah, for sure. I just need access to it. I don't have access to it. Mad Dog says, yeah, I'm all for those kind of things being blocked. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anybody should be able to cheat in the game. I mean, that sounds like it's not a bold statement. It's like a fact. Like, I don't think anybody, other than cheaters, nobody wants cheaters to be able to do any of the shit they do. Like, period. Let's see. Mad Dog, no, not cheating. A basic part of Razer software from us. Oh, that sounds awful. Jesus. Yeah, Rage Fun says, I almost have the XM4, almost gold, Tiger, and you have to click on the event. Oh, there's an, okay. I'll have to do that. Yeah, thank you for that. I have to do that. I've just been playing Area 99 whenever I get a few minutes here and a few minutes there. I'll drop in for a couple matches, and then that's like all the time I get. I could be playing tonight, but I wanted to do a podcast episode because I think it's really important to talk about this stuff and get it out there. And like mouse and keyboard players are having a hell of a time. Like I hear it on Twitter every day. So I just really think it's important to keep talking about this stuff so it doesn't just go away. Pete says cheaters are bad, but usually blatant, but the ones that two boxers come. Okay, I want to be very clear about two things. Number one, I think two boxing makes you a selfish loser if you're doing it. But number two, I don't think it's cheating. Okay? Just because you're not using a third-party software, you're not doing anything that's against terms of service, you're just doing something that's dirty. It's scummy and selfish behavior. And the reason it's scummy and selfish behavior, in my opinion, is because you're making another account purposely. You're having another account that's not leveled. It's not going to ever get played. It's going to be like a constantly like reverse booster to like not used account. You're rejoining that in the match just to get into lower skill lobbies, to shit all over lower skill players and ruin their game. And I just think that's awful. So let's see. Okay, Pete said no, it's not cheating, it's cheap. Yes, yeah, okay, yeah. I agree. Yeah, Mad Dog says Razer software allows the making of macros, either recording basic inputs. Wow. Huh. Sounds kind of a little bit sus, Daddy that says, I will say Ricochet seems to be working. I ran into a few hackers, but not as many. That's great. I mean, I'm glad to hear that. Let's give that some cheers, huh? I've heard that if you're playing ranked, if you're playing Black Ops 6 ranked right now, it's littered with cheaters. I mean, I've heard that it's absolutely awful. On Twitter, there's been guys saying that asking Call of Duty just to shut off ranked in Black Ops 6, just shut it off. Just shut it off until they fix it. You know what I mean? So it must be really bad. Mad Dog says, click stop recording, then bind the macro to a button. If you see a gap in the wall, you can just press it as you please, but can also be recorded for... Oh man, that kind of stuff sounds sus to me. So I don't know. I don't really want anything to do with it. I hear the word macros and I just think, I just don't want anything to do with that. Rage Fun 09 says, do you work for Call of Duty? No. No. I mean, I do have a day job. I'm not a professional streamer or content creator or anything. This is just a side business for me. I do have a day job. I have to work it tomorrow, but then I'm off Tuesday and Wednesday, and then of course for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the U.S., taking my family to my in-laws in Minnesota. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah. So no, I don't work for Call of Duty. Pete Hines says, I think Ricochet is the biggest placebo ever. You're not the only person I've heard say that. You're not the only person I've heard say that. I've heard other people say they think that. I've heard other people say they think that Ricochet is like I don't know what's the term, scam, or like just a marketing thing, right? But I don't think that is legit. Just because like we've seen people actually get banned, like live, we've seen it actually happen. If you report somebody, it's possible that if things are working correctly, they'll get banned right in front of your eyes because you reported them. We'll see cheating go up and down like this, right? If there was nothing in place at all, cheating would be like this. it would never experience a decline. It would just, cheaters would always be awful at the same level. It would just be infested all the time. So Ricochet is a thing, I believe. I just think it just has a ways to go. And I just think it's a constant game. Like Muffin Man has said this before too. It's constant cats and robbers. Cats and robbers. It's constant cops and robbers. Right? The robbers are always trying to figure out how to rob the bank. The cops are always trying to figure out how to stop them. And it just, then the robbers have to figure out a way to get around the cops. And the cops have to figure out a way to stop them. I mean, it's just, that's how it is. And so we just need Ricochet we need more investment from Activision and now Microsoft, which has basically unlimited pockets. I would love to see a massive, massive investment in Ricochet going forward, out of Microsoft's budget or whatever. But I'd love to see a huge investment and a huge surge or uptick in bans and things. Like I just want to see weekly ban wave announcements. Like we just banned 100,000 cheaters. All right, they came back fine. We just kicked them again. Like, eventually it's going to get either too expensive for the cheaters or too annoying, and they're just going to stop. Like that's what I would love. So, Daddy that says ranked is bad, which is why I'm staying out of there. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Pete says, do you class your streaming as a business? My streaming is a business. So I started a company, going on a few years ago now. And whenever I do things like this, it's just part of my business efforts, essentially. But whenever you're going to become a content creator, you should start a business. You should make it a business, or else, it's just the way to do it. That's the best way to do it. So essentially, yes, I am streaming for my side business. I seem like I work for COD. Okay, great. I mean, I would if they asked me to consult or something. Sure, why not? But no, I don't work for Call of Duty. Pete Hine says they should hand out hard right events. Yes, I'm surprised they don't. And I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. But I'm surprised they don't. Like that would be a very good thing in my opinion, right? Because if you ban somebody's heart, so here's the thing though, they have like spoofers and things that I think can get around all of that. So I don't even know if that's a permanent solution. To be honest, I don't know. I really don't know. It's a good point. But I think cheating is still, it's still a very, very big problem, obviously. And I don't think it's a major problem, however, for most. This might be a hot take. I don't think cheating is a huge problem for most players. I don't think most players are seeing a bunch of cheaters. I think most players, like my skill, I don't see a lot of cheaters. I'm literally an average skill level player. And then of course, if I don't see a ton, I don't think there's a lot of people that are lower than me in skill level seeing a lot of cheaters. So I really don't think most people are seeing a lot of cheaters. I think the cheaters, maybe they have a couple of games and then they rack up enough kills and then they get stuck into the higher KD lobbies. So people like Angela with 1.5 KD, she's probably seeing cheaters in her lobbies. I have like half her KD, so I'm not going to see a lot of cheaters. This is one of those things where, again, it may be a priority issue for Call of Duty. Right? Which sucks. Right? Because their data isn't telling them that cheating is a huge, huge issue. I mean, that could be what it is. I'm not going to say I know, but I will tell you, and this is a fact, working in let's just put it, large companies like Activision, and quite frankly, Microsoft. Big companies act on data. I mean, it's just the truth. So if they're not seeing, let's put it this way. If they're seeing major player exoduses, if they're seeing a major player exodus and they check into their data and it's because people are running into cheaters, you know, you get a bunch of reports and somebody leaves the game and doesn't come back, things like that, they're going to fix it. If that happens enough, it's going to become a priority. It probably isn't happening a lot. Now, the situation with ranked may be different. I don't know. Because if you literally can't play a mode without running into a bunch of cheaters, I mean, I don't know how the data could not show that. Like, how could the data not show that? I don't know. Let's see. Daddy Death says, this is the first Warzone that I have started at an above average KD. I see one about every 5 to 10 games. It's not, you know, terrible. Pete Hines says I have a 3.5 KD. Holy cow, and rarely see a blatant cheater. Okay, well, I mean, there you go. So, and in Pete's at that KD, he's in the highest skill bracket lobbies there are. I mean, like you don't get, he's a top 1% player. It's like a top, 0.5% player probably. You get to be a 4 and 5 KD player, you're like 0.1% player. So, like, he's way up there. Pete is a very, very high skill player. I mean, and he's not seeing many blatant cheaters. So, but really the issue isn't the blatant cheaters, really, is it? Like, because if it's a blatant cheater, the Ricochet is going to catch him. It's the ones that don't look like they're blatantly cheating, the ones that can toggle their cheats on and off, the ones that are good enough at it to be able to use use it when they need it and not look at you through walls and stuff, right? Right. So they're maybe aiming away, but they know you're there, but they're not aiming there. They're waiting for you to come around, and it's gonna look natural. They're the ones that Ricochet has a hard time with, and any of us would too. So, Daddy Death says that's the thing though. The higher KD cheaters will actually hide it. Yeah. I mean, if you're good at cheating, you're probably getting away with it more. That's a problem. Yeah, I agree. Pete says you have sus moments, but with the buggy kill cams, it's hard to. Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't use kill cams. And this has been a thing in Warzone since the beginning. Like, the kill cams have never been accurate. The kill cams have never been accurate. They've never been a reliable way to tell if somebody's cheating or not. Now, they might look sus, and yeah, they are cheating. Like, you might be able to tell, but they're not really that reliable, and they shouldn't be exclusively used to tell if somebody's cheating. Activision does want us to report people that do seem sus, but it should be more of like, hey, they shot me through a wall. They tracked me through a wall, right? Like, they knew I was coming around the corner and there's no other situation happening. You weren't live pinged. They don't have a UAV, stuff like that. That's what you should be reporting, right? But if it's just like in the kill cam, you see a guy that is shooting at this guy, and suddenly it just kind of jumps a little bit to another guy. That's not a very reliable, like, it's not a very reliable way to determine if they have an aimbot, because kill cams do stutter sometimes. Like, they're just not reliable. Daddy Death says you have to spectate, and now you don't. Yeah, right. You have to do more than just kill cam. That's my point. That's the short way of saying it. Like, you got to do more than just kill cam. Yeah, spectating is a good way to do it, because then you're going to see stuff, right? But interestingly enough, a lot of times, if you're spectating somebody you suspect of being a cheater, if they can see that you're watching them up in the right upper right hand part of their screen, they'll just stop it. They'll just start playing normal. They'll, like, turn the cheats off. So they'll go from being the best player in the world who just destroyed you, and obviously looks like they're cheating, to being kind of an average player or even a bot. They'll just, like, it's like a switch, just switch it off. They'll just switch it right off, right? So, I mean, that issue is there. And Daddy Death says, actually, you can't even see if someone is spectating you now. They did take that away. Oh, yeah, okay, all right. So you don't know that if you don't kill anybody. So I don't even know that because I never get. That's not true. The last game I played, I got 8 kills. I mean, I died 4 or 5 times, but I still had 8 kills. That was on Area 99. How we like in Area 99? I mean, since we're off the topic M&K, I think we solved it. Solution is, my opinion, leave controller players alone from now for now. Like, leave them alone. But fix mouse and keyboard as an input. Fix those challenges. Fix the visual crap. Fix the aim sway. Fix the reticle issues. Fix it all. Right? Just leave the controller players alone. My opinion. Okay? So let's move on. Area 99. Does anybody like it? Okay, like, Daddy Des says I like it, but I wish there were more buy stations on the map. Like at pods, yes. King likes it. Alright, so we got some likes so far. I know Muffin Man has told me he likes it. Right? I like it. So Rebirth, is it a good map? Sure. But Pete loves it? Yes, Pete loves it. But Rebirth has been around since the end of 2020. It's been around for a long freaking time. Personally, I'm sick of it. And I'm not a huge Resurgence player. Like, I mostly mained the big map. But I'll play Resurgence. Like, I've been playing Area 99. As a matter of fact, I haven't played Urzikstan on the new Warzone yet. I mean, I played Area 99. And I've been enjoying it. Now, do I get crapped on sometimes? Yeah. But I also do some crapping. Right? It kind of feels like how it should be. Like if you make a mistake, you should get crapped on. If the other guy makes a mistake, you should be able to crap on him. As long as you got your stuff together. Right? Like, I do sometimes have an issue. I have an issue with, it can be really tough. Like, so if you got a lot of high ground around you in Area 99 and you're not on high ground yourself, yeah, it can be very challenging. But you kind of have to play it different. You can't play Area 99. You cannot play Area 99 like you'd play Rebirth Island. Bottom line. I know guys that love Rebirth. Tried Area 99. Swore off it right away, said they're never going to play it again, going right back to Rebirth when it came back. They just don't like Area 99. Yeah, because you can't play it like you play Rebirth. You can't just mindlessly zoom around the map. You don't have it fully memorized. It hasn't been out for 5 years. Like, okay, I like it because it's different. That's just me. Daddy Des says Urzikstan is actually enjoyable now because of the Black Ops 6 gunplay. Yeah, I mean, I'll try it. Like, I'll for sure play it. Like, I'm not going to be streaming. So on this channel, I'm not going to be strictly streaming or even producing content on just Call of Duty starting at, I don't know at what point, probably 2025. I'm going to be making it a multi-game channel. I have a Call of Duty Players Union channel on YouTube. It's brand new. I haven't done anything with it yet. But it's going to have exclusively Call of Duty content. When I produce something exclusively Call of Duty that has to do with like the mission of the CPU, it's going to go on that channel. I will do some COD content on this channel going forward. Like this podcast is for this channel, but even this podcast eventually will have to do with will be about other games too and other topics and things like that. Even bigger stuff like across the gaming world, right? Bigger issues, things like that. Daddy Des says, pro tip for Heiko games: stay on top of a roof while Resurgence is still active. You can pick off a lot of floaters. Oh yeah, I've done that. Mm-hmm. Good tip. Yep, good tip. I've done that. That's a good strategy. Good strategy. So it's pushing 11:30 Central my time. Guys, I got to get ready for bed here. I got to work tomorrow, but I want to tell you guys, this has been a really, really fun podcast, and I apologize for the technical issues I had halfway through. I don't know what was happening. Everything seems to be fine now. Like, I haven't had any drop frames since then. I'm down to, it looks like I'm dropping 14.2% of frames, or I did recently or something. I'm not really sure how to read that. I've never had drop frames before tonight. So I don't know what that's all about. But I apologize for those issues. I hope it didn't, turn off too many people. And Pete, I really enjoy you and thank you for helping me get through those issues and like telling me when things started looking better. Daddy, what's the other podcast I recommend? Uh, well, I mean, there's so many. Like I just go on to Spotify or even YouTube and just type in Call of Duty podcast. Like just find ones that you enjoy. There's so many. There are dozens, if not hundreds. Okay. I don't want to recommend any of them just because I don't know what you're looking for, but like definitely. Oh, the one with JW7, that's the slightly above average gaming podcast. They have a lot of episodes. That's the one with Sub 1 KD and JW7. Those two, they have each other to talk to, so it's a lot easier than doing this solo. And they don't. Theirs is only. They don't have a podcast where they interact with people. Like you can't really interact with them if they're recording or live or anything. They don't interact with the chat or anything. But they just do it that's how they record it. They're only talking to each other really. So it's a little different from this one. But they do talk about Call of Duty subjects and topics and like the game and things like that. So yeah, they do a good job. But as for me, I'm getting tired. So I want to say thank you again very much to everybody. Great episode. Yeah, Pete, we definitely should, man. That'd be great. I will why don't you are you on Twitter at all? If you're on Twitter, shoot me a DM or a tweet or something on Twitter. I'm JRock Gaming on Twitter. Or for anybody at King, you're a legend, brother. Or anybody that ever wants to email me, you can always email me at jrock@jrockgaming.com. Okay, and I do get those emails. I do respond. So Pete, you could certainly send me an email, and if you want, you can, we can, hook up and figure out how we're gonna, if you want to, I can have you on as a guest or something. Yeah, shoot me a DM. That'd be good. What I do plan to do, I don't want to be one of those podcasters who's like trying to make a name for themselves by getting all these big, high popularity streamers and people like that on their podcast. I mean, I think those guys get on enough other podcasts. Those guys talk about themselves enough. They have their own streams. If you want to find out about those people, you can. I want to focus on normal people. I want to talk to normal people about how they feel about the game. I want to have conversations with normal people like me, the majority of the player base, right? There are normal people. Normal players. Like look at like Pete's got a 3.5 KD. Angela has 1.5. King has a 35 KD. No, I don't know what his KD is, but like there are normal players who are like you, King. There are normal players that are very, very good at the game, and there are lots of normal people that aren't very good at the game. There's a lot of average people like me. Like we are the ones that don't have voices. We are the ones that I made this podcast for. So we are the type of people that I want to get on my podcast. That's stuff that's all coming down. Yeah, Daddy Death, that sounds good, man. Yeah, I'll definitely, I got a list. I'm starting to write up a list. I'm going to eventually have a lot of people. I mean, I can have up to 3 people, 3 guests in one episode if I wanted to. Which I've done in the past. So if you guys want, like this is episode 13. That means there's 12 other ones I've done in the past over the last like year or so. Some of them have been really good. Some of them have been kind of like, interesting to listen to, but some of them have been like really good. So I encourage you, if you haven't seen all the past ones, go check them out. But in the meantime, thank you again very, very much. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your night. And I really hope you guys have a fantastic week. Peace.